Welcome, everybody. My name is R. Christian Minson. I am former director of the breathwork department at Rhythmia Life Advancement Center, Guanacaste, Costa Rica. I'm a certified transformational breath facilitator for the last 13 years, senior trainer with the Transformational Breath Foundation, international speaker, author, coach, and what's relevant, especially to this topic today, I was a monk, a spiritual monk of spiritual order of this guy back here, Paramahansa Yogananda. And from that experience, I gained some monk wisdom for quarantined living. Now, when we were monks, we weren't considering ourselves in quarantine, but this quarantine lifestyle had a lot to lifestyle. So that's what I thought I would kind of chat about here to, one, hopefully give people a little respite, something different to do than sit around and twiddle the thumbs or clean the house for the 14th time. And I invite you to interact with me. This is meant to be an interactive communication here. I have some things to share as a way to get us to be together, basically. And in fact, that's been one of my mandates since being in quarantine, is to connect with people on a daily basis, not in a socially distancing responsible way, which means a lot of video chatting. So I figured Facebook Live could get me out to many people, but we can only have a conversation if you start saying stuff to me. Poppy says, "Oh, looking forward to listening to you share your wisdom." Excellent. Karen, hi, video's not working for me. Not sure why that is, Karen. Looks like everybody else. If anybody else has video problems, let me know. I might say, Karen, shut down your Facebook and then redo it. If it's on your phone, close it out. If it's in your web browser, exit out and then bring it back up. Hello, Padmini and Susan. All right, so this is wisdom. Let me before we get into basically what I've got today, wisdom I've learned from being a monk that may help in these times. Christian, let Christian know where you're from. Okay, yeah, Michelle saying that. Make an announcement first. I am officially gone from Rhythmia. Don't know, for those of you who knew me from Rhythmia, my departure coincided with the world blowing up. So it was a very event for me to leave, given that the rest of the world was in such dire crisis. Otherwise, it might have been something that had a little more fanfare and announcement. But I've moved on. Rhythmia and I are in good standing. I love the place. I recommend it highly for anybody interested in plant medicine experience. And we can talk more about that anytime. So what are people? Dan Cossey, hey, my childhood friend from Tejas, Texas. Christian Metzger, Monk Wisdom. I'm here for the show. Right on. And here we go. So Eric Schultz down the street here too. He knows where I'm from. Yep. Good morning. All right. So why we got this topic today? Veronica, welcome. When people find out that I was a monk, they inherently ask, "What was it like to be a monk?" Often I get people saying, "Oh, I just wish I could run away and be a monk and live the simple life." Well, given the current state of affairs, I'd say life is actually inviting you to experience this for yourself. Now, this can be a shock to your system if it's something that's not actually desired. But if you're one of those people that wonders, what is it like to be a monk? How could I, could I really run away to the hills and be content? You have the ability to experience that now. And so, like I said, it can be a shock if it's something that you weren't expecting or you weren't really prepared for, you didn't desire, but with a few mindset tweaks, you may see the value in all things current and future. Welcome, Nadia. Hey, I know you're out there in Switzerland. Veronica, I know you. Well, I think you're still in San Diego. Yeah, Michelle Dixon. Yeah, great to hear from you, Dan. All right, so and why this is relevant here a little bit to when I was a monk, I firmly believed in the general philosophy that what we were doing is living methods for a higher age lifestyle, meaning it wasn't just for monks. The type of life we were leading wasn't just for people secluded away in an ashram or a monastery, but it actually are the principles for healthy, wholesome, happy, focused, evolving life, a life that is more in tune with your higher self, a life that's more in alignment with the higher wisdom that comes through you, and less following those ego whims, those fleeting desires that promise happiness but usually end up leaving you with dismay. All right, Veronica's still in San Diego, and Diane Michelle Sunshine. Somebody I met recently in Costa Rica, now in Vancouver. Yeah, or no, Edmonton, right? All right. So what we're talking about, how this subject of being a monk relates to now. We're subject to restrictions to our lifestyle that has otherwise been very free to fulfill just about any whim or desire we want, right? So now that we can't fulfill these things, we're a little bit, well, as a monk, we chose to live that way. That was, we chose to restrict our lives in many ways to stay a little more focused on what was most important, which was our own self-realization and growth and evolution. So we restricted social life and mostly worldly distractions. And those are the things, if you really think about it, if you take an assessment of your life right now, those are essentially the things that we're missing. You still got your health, you still got your home, you still got life and breath, and as long as that's going, you have an opportunity to continue to move forward. Welcome. Lots of people joining on. I'm just going to say welcome, so I'm not disrupting the flows too much. If you do have questions though, or you do want to make any kind of comments, feel free in the comment bar. I really want to make this interactive. So the ashram environment, why we go there in the first place, is an environment of transformation, of realization. Again, the purpose of our life being our own self-realization, our own evolution of consciousness, our own evolution of lifestyle. And the environment, we chose to go into that environment to eliminate the distractions and focus on the methods to get to this realization. Okay, so again, this has been imposed upon us now, but my invitation to you is to start seeing that the freedom that's been taken away from us, what Yogananda back there called whim freedom really isn't true freedom. Whim freedom is the ability to do what you want. Real freedom is the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it. All right. Whim freedom is the ability to get an ice cream when you desire it, even if it's at 3 a.m. or something a little even more debaucherous. So welcome. I realize being at home now that distract myself always. Debbie, say a little bit more about that. Your ashram was in California, Tammy. Where I was in California, yes, and actually in Los Angeles. That's where I spent a few years in Encinitas, a couple years in Hidden Valley, which is in Escondido, and then up in Los Angeles, where I spent most of my time. Hello, Stella. So, where was I then? The ashram was a place to start to focus on these methods of realization. So, is this a place to run away to? Is this a place where you can be peaceful and relaxed and get away from it all? I'd say yes and no. Hey, Christian Albert. And so in the ashram, basically, you go for peace and inner tranquility, but you're forced to face your shit. All right, you're forced to face it. How about that? Just as you are now. But there is by choice. Here, it's a little imposed upon us, as the Lord, God, the higher powers, speaks to us at first very subtly, tells us we need to change, barely a perceptible communication. Then they might whisper in your ear, hey, you need to change a little bit. Things are going a little awry. Then they might start getting a little louder, natural disasters and stuff, things to bring to our attention. Hey, the world's not quite going right, and maybe you as an individual have a piece in that. What can you do to change that? And if we still don't hear it, then it slaps us upside the head and says, hey, we got to do something dramatic, like experience this virus thing. So the fact that it's a virus, whatever it is out there, the detail of that doesn't matter so much as the fact that life is bringing us an opportunity to evolve here, and is bringing us this opportunity in this dramatic way because we haven't taken the subtle hints that it was giving us earlier. We have the perfect opportunity to live a smooth, flowing, harmonious life, but when we disrupt that flow, when we go against the grain, against that higher consciousness, and live more in ego-driven, desire-driven, greed-driven consciousness, the wake of that energy, the shock waves essentially create what we're experiencing now. So welcome to all those others who have just joined on. It's great to see a good crowd coming. So, here we are, we're forced to do this, and I like to quote Gandhi and saying, Gandhi said, the best time to fast is when you have no food, right? So the best time to start applying, monastic principles of seclusion, silence, self-discipline, all these things we're going to talk about, is when you're forced to, all right? And here we are. So you can rail against it and have a pretty miserable time, or you can learn to go with the flow. In that way, I often use the analogy of a surfer, right? Here we are. Life circumstances are like a big wave coming in at us. Most of us are like, hey, we don't want this wave to come in, so we're going to stand there and try to stop the wave. Well, you live near the ocean, have you ever tried to stop a big 6-foot wave from coming in? No, it's just going to hit you and tumble you through the washing machine. So, however, if you have the wisdom of a surfer, you see that wave coming in, you see potential. You see potential to harness the energy of that wave and then ride it. Ride it for your advantage, ride it for your evolution, ride it for even your fun and satisfaction. And so this is really what we're striving to do, is learn how to ride this wave. Right now, it's kind of a tsunami, but if you ever saw, I can't remember what that movie was, that guy from Dirty Dancing, but Patrick Swayze, where he ends up going out, committing suicide, but in riding the hugest tsunami wave. If anybody remembers the name of that movie, right? Type it in. Okay, so this is the best time to fast, so to speak, because we are forced to. And now we're in quarantine, seclusion. This was a huge monastic principle. Seclusion, as Yogananda would say, is the price of greatness. Point Break. Eric shows a couple people remember that movie, Point Break. So, it has to do with riding the biggest wave there. Padmini says, time for solitude and just let go of the things we can't control, which is pretty much everything, just about everything. We'll get to see. But so seclusion is the price of greatness. Why? Because it gives us time to withdraw from the machine of life and action in new habits. All right. And this is the key word, to action in new habits. We've been, in the summer of life, which we've been experiencing for some time, we read good stuff, we listen to good stuff, we interact and exchange great ideas. But what do we actually put into practice that then, what we end up putting into practice really bears fruits in the times like this, where then it's a little bit more difficult to hold on to your peace of mind, a little bit more difficult to stay centered and focused. But if you practice these things, you can start to manifest that. So let's talk about some. These are then some tools, some mindsets that come from monastic life, really from the spiritual life. These are extracted really from the Bhagavad Gita, which I'd say is what they call, the Indian Bible from India, amazing volume of wisdom. And one little part in there is the 26 qualities that make man godlike, that make men and women godlike, meaning 26 qualities that when we embody these qualities, we are in full alignment with the flow of our godliness, and we can manifest that so much better. So let's see a few more people join in. Thanks. So the first one, and this, above all else, if you could, if you take home anything today, it is the concept of surrender. Surrender is probably the number one quality you need to have as a monk, as somebody on the spiritual path, and pretty much somebody who lives life. If you want to live a happy, harmonious life, you have mastered, or at least are continuously practicing, the art of surrender, which means to recognize, to let go of those things that we can't control. There's a St. Francis prayer that goes, Lord, give me the strength to change the things I can, the peace to let go of those things I can't change, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? So right in there gives us a lot of understanding. We have to surrender to those things that we can't change, and just know that life is supporting us. Life is here for our highest and greatest good, even though at some times it doesn't always seem like that. I mean, surrender, God help me. Great. Joel, hey there, Joel. Cheryl, hello from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Excellent. And welcome Nira and Justin, Shauna, and Hilda. So surrender. What we realize is that nothing's really in our control. The issue is that our days tend to go so similarly that we get lulled into a sense of complacency. We think that life is going to happen the same way it did yesterday, because it did happen yesterday the same way it did the day before. And so we the fact that it keeps going in this similar way makes us think that, oh, well, this is how it goes. But at any moment, as we see, things can shift and change. And if there is one constant in life, it is that things will change. So when we can surrender to that idea that things will change, and things will change not on our time schedule, that's a huge weight right there, from being frustrated and agitated. And I'll give you a personal example. I was going to Denver wasn't my final destination. Dubai was my final destination to really be with people I loved and to be ready to to weather the storm and provide support to my significant other. And I flew into Denver from Costa Rica. Even left a few days early because all of a sudden things were getting crazy. They were going to close the borders there. So I sped up my thing, but I was watching for all the news and thought I was working on time. My plan was still to come to Denver, fly in from Costa Rica to Denver, drop off stuff, check in with my parents, make sure that they were doing okay, and then fly off to Dubai before everything got locked down. Well, as I landed in Denver, and the next day I was going to Dubai. That day while I was there, here in Denver, I got the notice that they weren't issuing visas anymore for the United Arab Emirates, and I couldn't go. I mean, it was from one day to the next. I was all set. I was ready. Everything I'd done, everything in my control I did to make it happen, and still something happened and made it not happen. And it's very frustrating, right? To not be where you want to be in this time. And now we're in the space we're in for the long haul. So I had to surrender to that. After, it's okay to have some emotions and to express them and let it all out. But after that, it's to recognize, all right, that energy's cleared. Here's where I am. Here's where I am for who knows how long we're going to be where we are. Look around. It's not such a bad place. And hey, I got this great basement. I can come to you live now. So that's all on the topic of surrender. Hello, Colorado Springs, Jim Broyles, hey, Eric Schultz, Tim. All right, lots of stuff. Not to your parents. What are you saying there? Bloom where you're planted. That's a great anecdote to sum up what we're saying about surrendering. You surrender, then you can actually start to flourish where you're at rather than fight against where you're at. Okay. Silence. Now that we're in quarantine, you still have a lot of opportunity to distract yourself. We got TV, we got movies, we got substances you may have acquired and kept in your house. All these things to keep the chatter kind of going. And the invitation here is silence. Silence really means less doing and more observing. More now. It's time now not to act, to get out there and fight and rail. There'll probably be a time to do that sometime in the near future or not too distant future. But right now it's time to assess, to in silence observe what's going on. What is this situation really telling you? What is the communication that's going on here? And you can't listen to that if your mind's filled with everything else, all the distraction you can find or your own chatter. So this is probably the second biggest point today that, if you were to take 2 points away, this would be it. That in the monastic life, we really looked for the lesson in every experience. We saw every experience of life as a lesson in process. And you either learn the lesson and you move on, or you don't learn the lesson and you get that lesson over and over and over again. So, it seems like humanity's on somewhat of a cycle, as they say. If you don't learn from history, you're destined to repeat it. And so, we can see some of these things. And do we want to be that thick-skulled that we continue to not learn from what's going on out there? So listen, look for the lesson in your experience. So surrendering and looking for the lesson in every experience, and considering every experience to be a lesson. This is an amazing uh, opportunity to experience your own resilience, your own craftiness, your own creativity, your own ability to think outside the box, because our box is totally blown up, even though we're literally living in it now. Hey, Kash, hey, good to see you on this. So welcome. In that silence too, one of the things that we would do in the looking for the lesson is like, who is that lesson coming from? Well, the lesson's coming from our higher power. Whether you consider that God, whether you consider that your higher self, your spirit, the universal Om, the holy vibration of love, whatever it is, that the lesson is coming from this higher source. And so part of our practice on a daily basis, what we call practicing the presence, meaning to presence in that this lesson is being taught to us in real time by this power. So that power is present, that power is available. And so to practice that presence, that it is with you, that it is guiding you. My friend and very significant friend sent me, I forget what psalm number it is, but Jay Uttal sings it. He just calls it a psalm, and it's though I walk through the shadows of the valley of death, or something like that, I'm unafraid because I know that you're always with me, right? And they're talking about God, or talking about that universal power that is always operating for your greatest and highest good. By practicing the presence, we feel that presence there. We feel that presence assisting us. And it's often in the difficult times where we actually perceive that presence more clearly, because there's a dramatic difference between where we're, the danger we're headed in, and then how we end up getting nearly averted from that danger or saved by this presence. So, and that is Psalm 23, as Jason says. Jason, hello. I'm in Colorado now. You know that? Kathy, hey, David McAtee, Karen Miller, does that just come with surrender? All right, was how to determine what the lessons are. Does come? Well, this is what I'm saying, Catherine, is I'm not telling us what the lessons are, though I've got some ideas for myself. And I say there are both individual lessons and collective lessons, right? And it's in this silence, in this listening, that the lessons start to bubble up. As long as we keep chattering, as long as we keep, railing against, one party or another, or, whose fault is it? And actually, absence of fault finding is one of these 26 qualities. Not one that made it in here, but it made it in, obviously, because, look at how it goes. Life, when you're fault finding, you're basically playing victim, which means that life is happening to you, not for you, or not, that you aren't a co-contributor to life. And so you strip your power away completely by fault finding, and again you create static in your mind, so you can't hear the lessons. So the silence will bring those lessons, and I invite anybody, if anybody's got some realizations on those lessons, to put them out there, and if they want to, basically that. Let's see, Padmini, tell us what someone like you who practices mindfulness received as a lesson so far because of COVID-19. Again, so my lessons are basically, my biggest lesson was exactly why I'm putting this together. This was a call for me, a big call to return to some very fundamental, basic lifestyle practices. And when I thought about what those were, they're exactly the practices that I did as a monk. And they're not practices of a monk, they're practices of people who want to live healthy, happy, wholesome, congruent, smooth, flowing lives, even in the midst of, as Yogananda would say, standing unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds. Here, the sky is falling. Chicken Little is screaming on every news station, the sky is falling. And yet, so do we get all frenzied and out of control? Oh God, the sky's falling. Or do we just take a breath and say, I'm alive like I was in the last moment. And let's see, if I presence myself to this moment, I'll know what to do in the next moment. So Again, one of my big lessons to remember to surrender. As I gave my story, my personal desires have been thwarted just like many people's, and so it's like I could either be angry and bitter about that, and again start blaming, shaming, whatever, or I could take it upon myself to see, all right, if I can't be physically with my loved one, what is the lesson here? How are we meant to grow stronger apart and still, maintain our connection? So those are just some of the things. Laura Plancito, good to see you. Yeah, you did email me a couple of days ago. All right, so we're just down the street from each other. Maybe we should get together at a socially distant space. All right, Ingo. In Ireland, loving the peace and quiet and simplicity, resting and writing quiet, except for the birds singing. Isn't that great? If we actually quiet down, you might actually hear something like birds singing. Valerie Reeder, hey, how are you doing? And things have spurred me to reconnect with nature in ways that I've forgotten and have been distracted from doing. Great, Karen. That's a beautiful thing. It's one thing I noticed here in Colorado, because we have a park out back from this from the house, and even though everybody's being told to quarantine, that everybody's out in the park now. I don't think there's anything wrong with being outside versus inside, as long as we're quarantined, meaning we're not like all touching and dancing together and playing contact sports, but to get the fresh air, get the sunshine. But the point is that, yeah, a lot of people are reconnecting with nature, because that's like the only thing we can do, right? So which isn't a bad thing. Daniel Kaufman, hello. Linda, hello. Cynthia, hello. All right, so now all this, the next point on here is patience, right? As a monk, patience was a huge quality we needed to cultivate, because, if any of you meditate, if any of you have been on a longer trajectory of meditation, you know that it's not an overnight bliss bomb. Much like I think one of the reasons rhythmia and plant medicine are so widely sought after is because it does give oftentimes this immediate effect of, oh my God, my whole paradigm has shifted. I changed. I see it now. But you still come back down from that and still have to then apply that wisdom, those realizations in your life. And that's a day in, day out slog that sometimes doesn't look pretty. The sun doesn't shine every day. Sometimes it's raining. Sometimes it's crummy and miserable. But once again, if you surrender to it, you recognize the rain is there as beautiful as the sun. The rain's providing something, the nourishment for the flowers that then when the sun comes out, the flowers can grow towards, because they've received that water and life-giving energy. So patience, slow, who knows how long this thing is going to last. And, for those of us who want to get right back to it, I say, patience is one of our big lessons. It's, I want to fly out as soon as they lift these restrictions. But, hey, I'm here. Patience is virtue. Patience is keeping me from otherwise, again, getting very frustrated, raising my blood pressure, not feeling so good. And then maybe resorting to things to numb out those feelings, or to make me less agitated for the short term anyway. And David's nature is a blessing always. The ocean's close. I love seeing it and listening to it right after dawn. It's very empty. Excellent. Amilo, quit fix. You need black ink to show up on white paper. Everything has an opposite, which makes it possible. That's beautiful, Linda. And life is here to teach us the balance. I love the yin yang symbol. The swirl, half black, half white. Showing that all, the wholeness of it all is both dark and light. And what I love is, in the dark section, there's a little white circle, meaning that even when you're in the dark phase, there's still, an essence of light there. And in the white, same thing. Even in the light phase, there is the essence of darkness there. So here we are, we're in the dark phase. And what we're focusing on today is that little white dot, the essence of the light that still is present within this dark period. All right. Simplicity and non-attachment, the next qualities. This is, I'm going to get into in a minute the vows, but one of our monastic vows is simplicity. And this simplicity is so vital because once again, now we don't have the complexity as much as we did. We can't, what is complexity anyway, but usually taking our consciousness down deeper and deeper holes of distraction. Simplicity is meant to calm the mind. Have you ever walked into what I call a Zen environment? It's got very few ornaments, very few pictures, not like this. Look at here. In fact, I've been cleaning up down here, as cleaning is one of the few things you can do in this quarantine time. And this is like half the stuff that was sitting up here before. So, to simplify, it helps the mind stay calmer. It helps the mind stay focused. The more crap is in your environment, I guarantee you it's going to create an agitation in your system. And that agitation then spills onto somebody else who's agitated, and then you start this conflagration. And that's that's what we don't want to have happen while we're, sitting here quarantined with otherwise beings we get along with, or at least be at, peace with. So simplicity, non-attachment. Again, non-attachment meaning, do we, these things that we want, it's okay to want, but to know that most of the suffering comes from unfulfilled desires. And desires come usually from attachment. We're attached to these desires, or let's say this, desire doesn't necessarily come from attachment. We can still have desires regardless. But the pain of an unfulfilled desire comes from our attachment to desire and not being willing to let it go, or to temporarily release it and let it come back around at some point. Michelle, I'm learning not to get stuck in the cog of wanting to control, letting my grief go over the changes I feel, and welcome my new life. Beautiful. And grief is one of those things I want to touch on in a very recent future Facebook Live, because right now grief is heavily prominent, because this is grief comes from the perception of loss. And right now there's a huge perception of loss, very collectively. And so everybody is going through a grieving process in some. So stay tuned for that future Facebook Live. All right, self-discipline. This is where the rubber meets the road. This was a necessary muscle to develop as a monk, and I mean that it's a muscle. We have to work it to grow it. To be strong and healthy, you got to work your physical muscles to weather the storms. All of these points I'm saying. It's like, yeah, I get it. And once again, this is the wisdom that probably many of us have learned already in one way, shape, or form, while the summer of life has lilted us into complacency. And now that things, the shit has hit the fan, it's the self-discipline which kicks in to keep you on track with these things. And so, it's optimal if you've developed that discipline before something like this happens. But again, if you didn't, the thing that's happening is here to get you to start developing that discipline. And let's see, Sheila, I have trouble when people are in my home. I stay calm, but it's uneasy feeling have others in my personal space. Well, and do you have them now there, or this is a good time to tell them to take a break from your personal space unless they're living with you? David, this time has allowed me to go within and see who I am, to maintain my vibration, whereas the way life was, it was hard to keep that vibration. This uncertainty has pushed me to focus on my vibration. Beautiful. And that's the essence of what we're really saying here today, David. So good job. And good to see you on. Chinese medicine says that grief creates problems in the lungs. And hey, Linda, and this virus seems to be a lung issue. One of the most natural things to do is drink hot lemon water daily and or regularly. It's going to help the lungs considerably. Gretchen, hello. Sheila, problem where miasma comes from. Okay, stimulate the vagus nerve. Say more on that, Debbie. So self-discipline. As monks, we took vows, 4 vows. One was simplicity, so that was really to be content with nothing or content with everything. It wasn't about having nothing, but it was about the simplicity mindset. But one day and gone the next. So this is really what we got here. We had this amazing amount of freedom and to fulfill our whims. Now we don't have it. Why is life any less beautiful? The sun still shines, as most people have said. We recognize there's a nature out there that's beautiful and needs exploring. So simplicity, obedience, and loyalty were the 2 other vows. And this, these are ones to. I'm of a very question authority type of mindset. So I believe healthy questioning is always important, but really obedience and loyalty to what's best right now for ourselves individually, but collectively. And this is where maybe it will play out what kind of truths and lies they're feeding us. But right now, the mandate is to stay separated. And just scientifically, virus can't spread if it can't jump from one host to another. And so we have a real, we have to be obedient and loyal to some of these mandates that are going out there. I won't say, whether they're right or wrong. That's up to you to decide. But once you decide, be obedient and loyal to them. And then the final vow we took as a monk was chastity, which I'm not saying is going to help or hurt your situation now, but many of us, truly included, are forced to re-examine that, and that's a great thing too, because sexual impulse can often be just another distraction. For those of you who are with your loved ones, I'd say, take this as a time to deepen your connection, to feel, to cultivate more love in your togetherness, since you're forced to be together. All right. Finally, I would say this isn't part of the monastic 26 qualities, but when I was a monk, one of the first things I learned from one of the elders was the spiritual life is fun, or it should be fun. If it's not fun, I'm out of here. In fact, that's what he said. The minute this life isn't fun, I'm gone. And it's not, once again, to say that he didn't say that frivolously and like, as soon as this stops entertaining me, I'm out of here. It's that life should be fun. Life, this is calling on our creativity and our resilience to think of ways to make life interesting. Think about when people had very little, and they sat around a fire and just sang some songs. And one of the reasons we got the guitar out here today, we related in such in creative ways that uplifted, that entertained, and again made life fun. This is part of what I'm striving to do here with the Facebook Lives as well, to give us some sense of fun, some sense of encouragement and momentum towards our higher conscious self. So how do we do all this? There basically are what I call 5 habits of highly spiritual people, 5 daily habits of highly spiritual people. And I'm going to talk about these more in depth in the next Facebook Live that I do, because this is really the essence of the day in and day out, maybe of how to do this. But I'll give them to you quickly today, and that's meditation, study, introspection, actual physical exercise, and then service. So these 5 things are where the rubber meets the road. These are the activities that will help you develop the qualities of surrender, of silence, of patience, of simplicity, of self-discipline. Working these is the essence of self-discipline. So again, meditation for quieting yourself, study for keeping your mind in wholesome and higher level thoughts, rather than I recommend, watching the news a little bit to get what's current, but shut off most of it, because it's just a lot of commentary that's designed to get your adrenaline going and put you in fight or flight, which makes you want to listen to more, which is how they make their money. Introspection, so you can really start to understand the mechanisms of your mind and your habits and make changes accordingly. Physical exercise to keep yourself physically fit, which is vital. You don't want to sit around and start to deteriorate in this. I made this time, we got more time, use it to better yourself, right? And then service, get out of yourself by serving somebody else. If there's others in the household, how can you make your quarantined environment more inviting and more peaceful for everyone? How can you, when we do have the opportunity to interact with others again, how can you maybe help some less fortunate, or get the word out about something or whatever. So those 5 things we'll talk about next week in much, much more detail. Leanda, yoga, great for the body, mind and body. Yeah, I put that under physical exercise, which has a little taste, dabbling in meditation and all that in it. But if there was one physical exercise that I would recommend, if you had to choose one, I'd say yoga is at the top of the list. But you don't have to choose that or one. You can do a whole lot of different things. But it's very easy to do in your home, and very easy to do on your own. So thanks. Thank you for your words of wisdom. Appreciate it, Cheryl. Excellent. So hopefully you're staying on, because we'll be playing some music in just a moment. I just want to say these final words, and then we'll play a little song that's fitting for the times. What if you tried on some of these ideas that you actually pretended that you're going to be a monk or a nun for this time. You're going to practice some of the disciplines that create a simple, quiet, peaceful life that is really working on bettering ourselves from the inside out. What if you could make this shift in consciousness, see the blessings that's coming from your situation? Whoops, sorry, I'm not in an environment where I can control some of these things, so you have to bear with me while the phone rings. This time is allowing you to reevaluate those things you've been mindlessly pursuing, the things that have been creating stress, unhappiness, and relational difficulties in your life. And, so take this time as a retreat from the world, from your many distracting habits, and allow yourself to emerge. When we do, and we will, this too shall pass, guaranteed. We can emerge as a new man and a new woman. Man, that is a good one. I did get a request for Let It Be as well. So this is what now I got to determine. What do you want to hear? Simple Man or Let It Be? Let's see if I can open Live Questions Editor. see if, all right. I had a question. What would you like to know? What song to play? Questions and answers. All right, I thought this had a poll you could take. Got two Simple Mans. All right, I've got, the way this is going to go is by the time I reach that guitar and look over here, I want to see how many people have said Simple Man and how many people have said Let It Be. And that is what I will choose to play. All right, here we go, slow motion. And let's see. Thank you so much for the 5 key things to do. Great reminder. Excellent. And tune in next week because I'll go more in depth than that. Simple Man starting to win here. I wasn't plan on that, but hey, again, resilience, self-discipline is to be ready when the call is made, ready on a dime to change. All right, here we go. Let's see. I think we made it. Yeah, you did. You actually 3 or 4. Yep, 4. All right. It looks like you win. Simple people win, and it goes something like this. Mama told me when I was young, she sat beside me, my only son. Listen closely to what I say. If you do this, it'll help you some sunny day. Boy, don't you hurry. Don't live too fast. Troubles will come, they will pass. Find a woman, you'll find love. Don't forget, son, there is someone up above. Baby, be a simple kind of man. Be something you don't understand. Baby, be a simple kind of man. Won't you do this for me, son, if you can? Forget your lust, the rich man's gold. All that you need is in your soul. You can do this, oh baby, if you try. All that I want for you, my son, is to be satisfied. Baby, be simple Baby, be simple. Kind of man. Won't you do this for me, son? If you can. One more verse. Boy, don't you worry. You'll find yourself. Follow your heart and nothing else. That you can do this, oh baby, if you try. All I want for you, my son, is to be satisfied. Baby, be simple. Kind of man. Should be something you don't understand. Baby, be simple. Be simple, man. Won't you do this for me, son? If you can. Won't you do this for me, son? If you can. Won't you do this, oh baby, if you can. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, there we have it, folks. Facebook Live. Simple Man. I have to agree that was the better one to do with all the subjects that we covered today. They kind of came out in that song. So thanks for spearheading that, Aisha, and all of you who voted for it. And hey, Derek Rowley, I hope you saw that song there, Derek Rowley. My lead guitarist from the first band I was ever in back in college. How about that? You never know who's going to show up on Facebook Live. So a lot of people showed up the last minute. Let's just say, hope that hits. Love me some Skinner. Thank you, Christian. When are we doing Midnight Rider again? We'll figure that out. Let's figure out how we can do that across internet waves. Padmini Beautiful, thank you, Danny, great song. A few people just joined. Sorry, if you just joined, you're going to have to check out the recording, which will be up on my Facebook page in videos, and I'll also put it on my YouTube page. Beautiful, thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you, beautiful. And thank you all. I appreciate it greatly. Tune in next week. For now, same time, same place, Friday, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, 12 noon Pacific, all that. And look forward to getting to share with you some more. If you want, in the meantime, you can, of course, friend me on Facebook, friend me. If you do, say you saw me on the Facebook Live and you want to be friends. And if you have any suggestions for topics, especially as you meet with some challenges here in this quarantine time, if there's something that's a topic that we can shed some light on, I'd be happy to work with it. So, on the note, it's like my electronics are making noise that I don't want them to again. I'm out of here. Until next week. Namaste.